Hello everybody and welcome to my video showing how to assemble the 5119 camera's pinhole camera for the 5x7 model, the 57. When you receive this, you'll receive your camera kit here and some glue and a disposable brush and also a 35mm film cassette holder with some nuts and bolts. Those are 25mm long M5 bolts with 3 nuts. They are for the shutter assembly. You'll also receive some number of rubber bands that will be used to help hold this together. Now, one quick thing, I'm not going to use the disposable brushes in assembly. I'm going to use a silicone reusable brush just because I don't want to waste a bunch of disposable brushes. I'm going to pull the sticker off, and if you do this well, you might even be able to reuse the sticker to do something like sticking it on your camera or your computer or wherever it is you enjoy putting stickers. We're gonna tear the rest of that packaging open, and the first thing we're gonna do, now is an inventory. This is the camera side that has the data on it. Side felt, or suede rather. This is your bubble level side suede. This is the front of the camera. You're looking at the front right now. You will probably receive yours in this orientation with the pinhole on the back. The pinhole faces the inside of the camera. This is, if you put this together, by the way, with this facing outward, not only will it look ugly, your shutter will destroy your pinhole. This is the pinhole suede. This is in the wrong spot. It's supposed to be right down there. These are the top plate and the bottom plate. Top and bottom suede. Top and bottom suede. 2 shock cords. I believe these are both 9-inch lengths. This is 3mm or 1/8 inch shock cord if you ever need to replace it. Wool gasket components. The other 2 wool gasket components, this is what your film holders will rest against so that you can have a light, tight seal. And then these 4 are the internal linings for this piece right here when it gets assembled. These are the 3 shutter components. This is the film holder plate, and this is your exposure calculator in the back of the camera. The film holder plates, I thought, had laser etchings for how these go together, but it's actually okay because it doesn't matter which way these go together. They will work, and it doesn't matter which way they fit. They're basically the same pieces, just mirror image. So we're actually going to start by assembling this plate's parts. We're going to set it this way, so you're going to look at the narrow edge here. This is the bottom, this is the top. And we know that because this is the bottom of the camera, and these holes, which are going to plug into it here, are the same width as the pegs. So let's grab our glue. Now you don't want to put tons and tons and tons of glue on because you could cause a little bit of warp to form in the wood, but I'm actually going to put a little bit too much on the top there, and I'll be very judicious with the rest to make up for it. And the big thing is getting this out to the corners and along the edges. That's going to help you have the best finish that you can. The first things that we're going to install are the suede that face inside of the camera. So here's a short fat piece. It just fits right here. Then we have 2 long skinny pieces. They're on the sides. And this shorter medium width piece goes right there. Grab these, and they just nest right there. And this doesn't have to look pretty because no one's ever going to see it. This is solely for absorbing light that doesn't reach the film plane to help improve contrast and image quality. And like that, we finished assembling the first part. That is step 1 down. I'm going to flip it over, press this down really well. Now before we get too far, I'm going to show you how this part gets assembled because you have to do it the correct way. This fat bit goes up here at the top, and this medium bit goes down here at the bottom. Then we're going to grab, these are by the way the same, right, on either side, so it doesn't matter which side they go on. But then they fit like this. Now, the reason that this goes together this way, you can see that that creates an opening right there, which is coincidentally the exact same place as the light proofing bevel on the 5x7 film holders. So we want to start with the sides and the bottom. Now, next thing we're going to do is put a little bit up here, doing our best to avoid gluing where that gap goes. I mean, you can. Like, I'll show you right now. There is nothing wrong with putting glue there. It doesn't actually affect anything, but I know that there are people who are more particular about aesthetics than I am. So I want to make sure everybody is happy. Now we're just going to put these pieces of wool right into place. Just like that. Man, that is a nice fit. I had so many problems during design with the geometry of this piece right here. I don't know why. I do not know why I couldn't figure out. It's literally, it's a rectangle. But for some reason it caused me heartburn over like 5 of the design generations. Now we're just going to put a little bead along the top here. Just going to run it right out to the side, right where that other piece of wool is at. If you're good enough with the glue and you want to glue the sides of the wool, you can. There's no reason not to. I am not good enough with glue. Now we're going to take this last piece of wool and we're going to put it right in here. We're going to press these so that they are together. We want to make sure that that's a nice seam right there. There is a very low risk of this junction being an entry point for light leaks, but it's always better to be safe than sorry. And guess what? This piece, it's done. Let's move on to the next. All right, which part of this do you want to do first? I'll tell you what, if you pick the bottom, good choice. So the bottom and the top are basically the same. The bottom has this big thing of suede on it. You can put a decent amount of glue on here because there's tin foil under it. If you put too much glue on the bamboo, you risk it warping. It's less of a risk with these smaller cameras, but it could theoretically happen. But you can put a nice big glob on here to help the felt hold in place. Before we glue it, let's see how this fits up. This shorter piece of felt is the one that you want. If you grab one of the longer pieces, it will not work. The camera will not go together correctly. So grab a shorter piece like this, and this long edge nests right up against the front of these holes. This protrusion right here is coincidentally the exact same width as this width right here. That's not a mistake or an accident. So the way that this lines up is that you know you have it placed correctly if that long edge is in front of those holes and there's no wood visible on either side of this protrusion, and you can feel that it's lined up evenly. So that's how we're going to do that. Next, I'm going to take a nice big old glob of glue right there. I'm going to grab the brush. Going to reposition this until it's correct and we're happy. Give it a nice press, and then at this point we can take the paper off the back of the suede. Just like that. And that way, if you have any last minute repositioning to do, you can. Now at this point, if you have some masking tape or frog tape or something like that that you can remove very easily, I recommend this step. This will make later assembly a whole lot easier. I'm going to grab some pieces of tape. I'm going to fold each side over like this. There we go. That's what we want. Just bundle it up like that and set it off to the side flat like this to dry while we take care of doing the top, which we'll do the exact same way. And then we'll come back and see the sides in just a second. One slight difference for the top. When we put it together, this protrusion doesn't have anything here that's an equal width. So what you want to do is just kind of center this by eye. You'll be close enough. There's a good margin of error built into these. And then you know it's placed correctly if this width here lines up correctly with, if this edge here lines up with this edge. And then both of then the long edge is up against the holes, just like with the the bottom of the camera. Well, I lied about something. We're going to come back and do the front of the camera next. Okay, so you're going to notice that this felt has a notch in it. That notch goes to the top of the camera. So let's see what happens if we align it correctly. The top, by the way, has these two little like castle turrets up here, okay? And then the bottom just has a standard corner. So if you were going to hold it correctly, this would be what it's going to look like, bottom and top. So if we put this here and we align it correctly, that's how it looks. We can also then, once we glue it, flip it over. That's why that extra hole is right there. If we put this on incorrectly, you're going to notice that it doesn't really line up very well, right? So this is not going to work. You're not going to be able to get a photo or take your assemble your shutter. The pinhole is aligned to the center of the film plane, not to the center of the holder, because you notice that there's a much larger margin up here than there is down here. So when in my first couple of generations, I aligned this just in the center of the board, and I was getting the image circle cutting off in the bottom down here because of it. So that's why this design is the way it is, and this part is going to fit that way. What we want to do is get some glue and just put it up in the corners. I'm going to start in the corners here. That's a little bit more than I necessarily wanted, but that's life sometimes. If you put too much glue on, if you really glob this glue on across this whole board, it's going to cause it to warp. So as with all of these cameras, be really judicious in your gluing and don't use any more than you absolutely have to. And what you're seeing here is definitely way more than this needs. So we're going to take the felt, we're going to align it like this. Make sure that the holes are aligned properly. They are. Yep. Hold it up to your face and look through them at a light. Turn it over, give it a really good press. There we go. Now we're going to set this off to the side to let the glue dry. Next up here we have the bubble level side, which, oh, look at that. I did pretty well on the bubble level for this one. Okay, so what we're going to do here is glue in a similar fashion to the bottom. Now you can see here, this is where the bubble level hole is. And this Gorilla Glue here is going to protect your bubble level from years and years of 5x7s being slid in and out of this space right here. So in future versions, this will be in a slightly different position so that that's not quite so ugly looking, but it does not affect camera functionality at all. So let's grab our glue. Oh, before we grab the glue, let's see how this is going to fit so that we know what to look for when it's correct. What you can see here is that the length of the felt goes from notch to notch. So we know that this is going to be lined up correctly if we line up that length, that long length with these two holes, and it's a little bit hard to gauge on this piece, but this piece right here gets lined up with the insides of those notches. And again, be very judicious with your glue so that you don't cause the board to warp. I'm just going to put a nice glob like that in the center. And I'm going to align it like that. Give it a really, really good press. And now we're going to take the paper off because we're going to tape this up like we have done with all the other panels, except the front. The front panel does not get taped. Fold that up, and now we have a tidy, tidy bundle that we're going to set off to the side so that the glue can dry. We're going to do this with the other side, and then we're going to get to assembling the camera body. All right, so let's start assembling this camera. First thing we're going to do is we're going to come back to this side of the film holder board, and we're going to take the paper off of the inside facing portion. Okay, next thing we're going to do is we're going to come to the exposure calculator, and we're going to take the paper off of it. It doesn't hurt anything to have it on in that it's not going to like mess up your photos, but it will over time get caught on the 5x7 film holders enough that it will start to peel away. It's just a lot easier to take this off now than after the camera's assembled. There we go. Okay. So we're going to start with this by putting everything out the way it should go. So this is going to face the inside of the camera. Top of the camera here. So we know that that's going to go that way. And if that side goes there, we know this side's going to go on the other side. We'll save the front for a little bit later. This is the bottom. No, this is the top. I have this backwards already. All better. That's the top and that's the bottom, just like that. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to put some glue on a couple of places and start fitting these together. Now we're just going to make sure that the suede and not the wool is facing the inside of the camera. There we go, just like that. We're going to repeat up here on the top. Now this little bit behind those openings, you can put glue on that. No one's ever going to see it. Technically doesn't need it because it's not going to touch anything. It's just a baffle to help ensure that your camera is light tight at the film holder. Now we're going to pop these into place. There we go. Make sure that the suede on the inside isn't stuck in the seam. Now we're going to lay this on its side to help with assembling this next part. Now that we've got the glue everywhere it needs to be, we're going to grab the actual correct piece. These, by the way, can only go together one way. So you'll know you're doing this correctly if they fit. Just like that. That works. Now we're going to flip this over. We're going to do the same on this side. And we'll put the other side in just like that. Okay, we're getting there. Next, we're going to flip this over. Okay, this size camera, being a little bit smaller, is a little bit harder to glue in here. And if I'd done this differently, I would have been smart, but I didn't. We'll glue it up from the other side anyway, because I'm not going to do this correctly if I try to be fancy. All right, so now that we have this flipped over, we're going to take some glue. We're going to put it in these little notches here. And paint the underside of the notches as well. There we go. Now we're going to grab the front, and I forgot to put the shutter together. Oh, darn it. Ideally, you should put the shutter together before you glue this. The way that the shutter goes together is that the lollipop goes there, the half moon goes there. We're going to take these 3 bolts, and they just feed into those holes, just like that. Put your fingers over them, flip it over. We're just going to hand tighten these nuts. Okay, so we're going to hand tighten these. I'm going to hold the nut and tighten the bolt here. And this way, the suede material inside the camera on the back of this piece will work both as like a lock nut and as a washer. And it'll hold the nuts in place very nicely and give you the ability to use the bolts on the front of the shutter to to adjust the resistance. When you put the shutter together, you should have the smooth ring facing out. The back of the shutter assembly has a groove between the ring and the wood. You do not want that side facing out. Well, that's not going to work. That's better. We're getting there. I'm going to put this together before the glue dries and refine the tension on the resistance on the shutter later. There we go. Get that in. Yeah, I'll have to deal with that later. Okay, now that that piece is in, the next thing we're going to do is make sure that the 5x7 film holder fits nicely. It does. Yep, there it goes. Okay. Next, we're going to grab, these are 4 number 64 rubber bands. 1 and 2. Actually, put these at the top and bottom. Actually, we'll leave this one in the middle. Take that back. Make sure that none of these are inside those grooves, only because this will provide more tension. 3. 4. I may include some additional rubber bands beyond these 4, but this is really what's needed to hold this together. until the glue dries. Just like that. There we go. We're actually looking pretty good on this. Next thing we're going to do, because we can at this point, is we're going to deal with the shock cord system. So along this edge right here, there's exposed wood. What we're going to do is we're going to take glue and we're going to put it along all of these interior edges, because that's going to help hold the felt down, but it's also going to help with light proofing and increase a little bit the structural stability of the camera. So, almost out of glue in my other jars, so I'm just going to grab this one here. And it is okay at this point to be heavy-handed with the glue. We're just going to take the glue on the brush and we're just going to jam it right along the bottoms. I do tend to like to do the top and bottom first. I find them to be a little bit harder to do, and I want to get the hard work out of the way so that I can call the part, oh darn it, the part I don't like done. Now we're going to take the tape off of the suede that's on the bottom. There we go. Get that panel pressed back into position. Get that felt pressed into the corners there, just like that. Next, we're going to do this side. Actually, I guess technically what we're doing is the top of the camera, but you get my point. Okay, now we're going to take the tape off of this felt, and we're going to push the pieces of the felt, those overhangs that we taped up, we're going to push those right into the corners. All right, so next thing we're going to do is we're going to do the exact same process, but along the seams that the sides connect to. And that means we're also going to be re-gluing over a couple of the places where we already glued, and that's okay. We can just go ahead and slather it on in there. What you want to do is you make sure that you get it on both the wood and the suede. There we go. We're going to take the tape off of the suede. And then we just simply fold the suede up into the corners like that. And if you have some bubbles in the suede like this, it's okay. That doesn't have any effect on image quality. And now we're going to repeat on the other side. When you're doing this, make sure, as to the best of your ability, to get the glue on both the wood and the other layer of suede, because that's going to give you the best bond you can get as you glue the suede to itself and the camera. Going to tuck the suede down into the corners, just like that. And now you have gotten yourself a very, very light, tight finished product, because The suede is overlapping the seams with multiple layers of suede, and it's going to do very well at keeping this camera light sealed. Now, the next thing is you're going to have some number of number 64 rubber bands. Just going to take 3 of these, put them right along there. That's going to hold those for now. We'll come back to the front in just a moment. So the shock cord system is going to hold the exposure calculator in place. We're just going to kind of work it under the rubber bands here. This could have been done differently had I planned this video instead of decided to just, go by memory. But, I made my bed. I'm living with it. All right, now we have this in place. All right, what we need to do is secure this. So we're going to grab one of our shock cords. We're going to feed it up through the hole in the back of the camera. This is the one that's protruding from the film holder plate. Does not like that. This is a big, big messy end. So you can see the shock cord's been fed up through here. We're going to pull it until we get to that knot. Now we're going to pull the cord over and we're going to feed it through exactly the opposite of what we just did. We're going to have to give ourselves, we're going to have to pull on it to give ourselves enough length to fit through here. Now we want to have some tension on this. Okay, so I did the bottom first, you can do the top, but what you want to do is have some pressure on this. This is too loose right here. So you're going to pull this tight. Now you don't want it so tight that you can't pull it away from the camera, okay? You do want to make it a little bit tight, and then we're going to knot this end of it here. Like that. We're going to repeat for the other side. Now, the purpose of this part is that it puts even pressure on your film holder so that the wool gasket can do its job and prevent light leaks. And what you do to install and remove the film holder is you just lift up here to get your finger under there, and then you can access the film holder. And one thing I strongly recommend doing is leaving these knot lengths in place for the time being, because if you find that it's too tight, like I just did, intentionally, I'm going to go with that, you can work some of this slack through the shock cord knot, like this, just like that. That works. That feels a lot better. Yeah, that's good. And now you can more easily and readily access the film holder. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to set this off to the side for an hour, let the glue set up. Thank you for watching this video. Please give me a thumbs up. That lets me know that I'm on the right track producing content which is useful and helpful to you. If you have any questions or comments, please leave those in the comments section below. I'm pretty good about checking these every couple of days and answering questions. If you have any suggestions or ideas for future videos, and if I have the technical know-how and equipment, I'm more than happy to make those. One last thing, thank you everyone for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. I got to get up, Steinbeck. I have to turn off the camera.